The world is changing. Today we stand on the brink of a fourth industrial revolution, one that will transform the way we work, the way we live, and even what makes us human.
There's a group of technologies that are combining to create transformation across almost every industry at the moment. And those technologies include things like artificial intelligence, 3D printing, robotics, big data, and then some things on the sort of life sciences front in terms of genetics and medical imaging. And that these things are sort of combining in a way that's bringing about a host of transformative changes across industries.
I would describe the fourth industrial revolution actually quite similarly to how I would describe the past three, and that is technology that leads to massive gains in productivity. And massive gains in productivity mean substantial improvements to everyone's quality of life.
The world has been through revolutions before. The advent of mechanization, then electronics, then the digital revolution, all profoundly changed the world's economies. But this revolution could be even more disruptive.
I think in previous revolutions, you could really talk about them as industrial revolutions. What was changing was how things were made, factories, industry, often heavy industry in particular. Here you're seeing transformation across really a whole range of not just industry, but services and the creation of whole new business models that didn't exist before.
What's different a little bit about this particular revolution is that it gets into a whole range of things that people only thought were ever only possible for humans to do. Jobs that were human jobs before aren't going to be human jobs anymore.
At the heart of this fourth revolution is artificial intelligence, the ability of machines to match and perhaps one day surpass the cognitive ability of their human creators.
What's happening now is a big deal. It is making a big difference in the way people live, the way people interact with each other. It is sort of obliterating distance. It is, in some cases, removing humans from tasks that we once thought were the sole province of the human mind. These analytic tasks that we thought only a human brain could do, we're suddenly finding that algorithms can do, that machines can do.
These are early days in the brave new world of artificial intelligence, but the potential benefits are vast.
What are some of the liberating benefits of artificial intelligence? There are actually a lot. If you think about something just like driverless cars, autonomous vehicles, which is one use of AI that people are talking about, that could have a really liberating impact on a lot of people's lives. If you think about older people who can no longer drive, they're very shut in their houses right now, very dependent on others for transportation. With driverless cars, they would be able to go about their daily life. And then you're seeing with big data that this may have a profound impact on drug development, that you'll find new pharmaceuticals being developed at a faster rate to cure diseases because the computers are essentially able to sort through the data and pick up connections that otherwise would be missed.
For health in particular, the advantages of machine learning and data science are immense. Those have an incredible chance to address both very infrequent diseases and diseases which affect different parts of the population very differently. If we're going to cure cancer, it's probably going to come through data science.
But there is potentially a darker side to this technological revolution, one which could profoundly change the world of work as we know it.
A technological revolution will cost jobs. It'll cost jobs in the areas that see the biggest advancements first. A good example of that is feasible over the near term is truck driving. You have self-driving trucks. You don't need the 3.5 million truck drivers that you have right now in the US. What is key as part of this revolution, as productivity goes up, as the economy continues to evolve and new jobs are created, you need to make sure those displaced workers are given the skills to move into these new positions. That's what's key. Will all of them be? No. But I think the key point is you need to make sure if you've lost 3.5 million jobs in one sector, how do you create more than that in another sector? And I think in past industrial revolutions, that's what we've seen happen. And hopefully, and I think it will be what happens again.
But what if this doesn't happen? Martin Ford is a software entrepreneur. He has peered into our future economy and sees a world where potentially hundreds of millions of skilled workers are out of a job.
I would say that if you look far enough into the future, there is no job anywhere in our economy. There's nothing that anyone does that is completely safe, and that includes even artists and novelists, and the kinds of jobs that you would imagine right now are completely beyond the scope of artificial intelligence. Millions and millions of those jobs are going to be lost, and it's unlikely that enough jobs are going to be created to absorb all of those workers.
Martin Ford is a software entrepreneur who has a chilling vision of the future. His best-selling books have put him at the forefront of a movement which worries about technology, the speed of its growth, and the immense potential it has to change the world. This is the fourth industrial revolution, the advent of machines powered by artificial intelligence, which have the potential to make redundant hundreds of millions of workers across the planet. It is a world which is nearly upon us, but which governments and businesses are only starting to comprehend.
Well, the central idea in my latest book, The Rise of the Robots, is that over time, machines, computers, smart algorithms are increasingly going to substitute for human labor. I think that that's inevitable. Technology is eventually going to be able to do many of the things that people now do, and I think there's a good chance that that will result in unemployment. It's going to push people out of the labor force. Many people are going to find it impossible to adapt to that because they're not going to have capabilities that really exceed what machines can do. And that's, I think, going to be a genuine concern both for our society, of course, and ultimately for the economy too.
Some of those machines are already with us.
Well, there are already algorithms that can interpret things like body language and respond to some extent to emotion, that can determine your mood, for example, and so forth. And this has big implications. Imagine what that could mean, for example, for advertising. If an algorithm can determine exactly how you're feeling and then target advertisements at you based on that. Some of the language translation things that have been demonstrated are truly remarkable. Imagine if anyone in any country who speaks any language would now be able to do any job because we have perfect machine translation in real time between languages. So, that has real implications for the job market, obviously.
We may already be starting to see the effect on the wider economy. In the first decade of this century, the net total number of jobs created in the United States was 0.
What we see is that in the United States, we've been having what we call jobless recovery. So clearly there's something happening there, and I think part of what's happening is that jobs disappear when a recession happens, and then when finally recovery comes back, companies find that they're able to leverage technology to avoid rehiring a lot of those workers. And so it's taken longer and longer for the jobs to reappear.
Throughout history, technology has always disrupted economies and societies. In the late 19th century, 50% of US workers were employed on farms. By 2000, it was less than 2%. Those workers found work in other sectors. But Martin thinks this time it's different.
What transformed agriculture was a specific mechanical technology. Now we've got a technology that's really just ubiquitous. It's across the board. Artificial intelligence is something that's just scaling across our entire economy. It's not something that's impacting just one sector. It's something that literally is everywhere. And as a result, it means that there isn't really going to be any safe haven for workers.
What makes the new technology so ubiquitous is the development of a new virtual world, the world of big data.
Well, big data essentially is the collection and use of just massive amounts of data. And in big corporations, for example, these companies are collecting all kinds of information about their customers, about their business operations, about the actual processes in industrial environments and factories, about the things that their employees are doing. All of this data essentially becomes a kind of feedstock for these smart algorithms. It becomes the information that they use to learn and basically to figure out how to do things. And that's something that is just going to be, I think, dramatically disruptive going forward.
The total data stored on the world's computers is now believed to be well over 1,000 billion gigabytes. And it is big data which is driving the most disruptive advance in technology, the ability of machines to think.
One thing that you'll very often hear people say, even today, is that computers only do what they're programmed to do. And this is really not right anymore. And the reason it's not right is basically because of machine learning, because we now have this technology that allows smart software algorithms to look at data and based on that to learn how to do things, to figure things out, to make predictions. So it really is no longer the case that some human being is sitting down and telling a computer exactly what to do step by step. Computers are now having the ability to figure that out for themselves. You can imagine a future where every device, every appliance, all kinds of industrial equipment, everything communicates and talks to each other. And I think that one of the things will happen is that artificial intelligence will kind of use that as a platform. It will scale across all of that. Everything will become more intelligent.
The last great technological advance saw robots replace millions of blue-collar jobs in factories and on production lines. Martin believes this new disruption is going to target the white-collar workforce as well.
Once a computer learns to do something, then that information can be scalable out to any number of machines. So it's almost as like you can imagine having a workforce of people and you could train one employee to do a particular task, and then you could clone that worker and have a whole army of those workers. That's a bit like the way artificial intelligence works. So machine learning is very scalable. If you've got the kind of job where someone else, another smart person, could maybe watch what you're doing or study everything you've done in the past and figure out how to do your job, then it's a pretty good bet that eventually there'll be an algorithm that will come along and be able to do, essentially that same approach. So that's a lot of jobs.
Many of the jobs which might be displaced are those currently occupied by educated, highly paid workers.
So you can see really across the board that anyone sitting in front of a computer doing some sort of routine, predictable knowledge work, for example, if they're cranking out the same report or the same analysis again and again, all of that is going to be very susceptible to this. Journalism is one interesting area that's being impacted by this because there are now systems that can essentially tap into data and then they can transform that data into a very compelling news story that many people would read and they can't tell that it was written by a machine. In the future, maybe 90% of news stories will be machine generated.
The number of jobs displaced has the potential to utterly transform the economic landscape.
There have been a couple of studies done, most notably by a couple of researchers at Oxford University, and they looked at a number of countries, and most of the results have come back suggesting that up to half of the jobs could be susceptible to automation, perhaps over the next 20 years.
That's 60 million jobs in the United States alone.